You might have decided to watch this video after seeing the thumbnail I made about why preservation is one of the most underrepresented paths in the game. It's not that they are irrelevant in the meta or less beneficial than the other sustained path, which is abundance. Some of you might have wondered if perhaps this path hasn't been properly maintained and is often overlooked by the developers. But on the contrary, it's actually because Hoyoverse has prepared a well-thought-out plans for the next few patch, which makes this path seem not neglected, but more like inadequately represented. In this video, we are going to dive into that and explore some of the possible reasons why this is happening to our tankers. From the outside, it seems that preservation is quite underemphasized in the game, particularly in terms of its character roster. Yes, as of now, we are noticeably lacking in the number of members for this path. Erudition has 8 characters, Abandon has 7, Hunt has 10 units, and if the main character is counted as 1, so that means Harmony and Destructions are both have 9 and 10 members respectively, while Nihility has the most member with 11 characters. Meanwhile, Preservation only has 6 characters at this point, and that's if we count MC separately, so yeah, there you have it, only 5 members. What makes this situation even worse is that we only have one 4-star character in this path. Looking back, Hoyo has never released even a single 4-star character from the preservation path. Instead, they consistently release 2 characters for each of the other paths. If you think this doesn't impact the preservation path much, on the contrary, it kind of does. So far, there are only 2 5-star limited preservation characters, while other paths already have at least 3 or more. Why does the lack of limited units in the preservation path pose a problem, especially in team building? It's mainly because the abilities of non-limited characters in fulfilling their roles can be quite underwhelming. Gepard, for example, is a shielder whose abilities are just enough for his role, while the amount of shield he provides as a preservation character is not bad. The real issue is how frequently he can refresh the shield for the team. He has to use his ultimate first to ensure the team's safety, but even that is not enough to protect them from some of the crowd control effects that enemies may use. Gepard cannot offer debuff cleansing or preventive actions like anti-CC, or at the very least, an increase in effect resistance for the team. Additionally, Gepard can be difficult to obtain since he is on the standard banner, while every player has the option to choose one of these characters for free. Many players opt for Bronya instead because of her exceptional value. Even players who already have C0 Bronya obtained by chance might choose her first Eidolon through these free selections. Because of this, Gepard often goes unnoticed when players select their free 5-star character. But we all have a free 5-star preservation character, right? Yes, of course we do. That's the Fire MC. Honestly though, the Fire MC's abilities are far below those of our current Harmony MC. However, compared to Gepard, the frequency with which Fire MC provides shields to the team is much higher, but at what cost? Naturally, the mount and strength of the shield are a bit weaker compared to Gepard because their scaling is terrible. At the very least, Fire MC has a chance to contribute higher damage than Gepard simply because their element is fire. Their enhanced basic attack and the offensive nature of their ultimate are quite decent for reducing the toughness of enemies weak to fire, potentially leading to a solid toughness break. But even this isn't quite enough to make the unit relevant in the meta. Like Gepard, they also cannot provide immunity to CC or cleanse for the team. But we do have a shielder who can remove debuffs. That's March 7, the only 4-star preservation unit in the game. Thanks to one of her traces, March can at least remove 1 CC effect, unlike the other 2 units we just discussed. However, her drawback is that the shield she provides is limited to only 1 or 2 people, so you will quickly run out of skill points if you try to shield the entire team with her. So that leaves us with the 2 limited units. On the contrary, the abilities of these characters are vastly superior to the other preservation units. Naturally, this is because you have to spend your jets to get them. But back to our issue, being limited units makes them hard for players to obtain, especially for those who didn't pull for them when their banners were up and now have to wait several months until their banners are running again. This might not be a problem for players who already have Fusion or Aventurine, but for those who don't, it creates a real issue in team building since they are missing out on the best tanks with no great alternatives left. So you might be wondering, with the situation as it is, shouldn't Hoyo address this lack of representation by giving us a few new preservation units in the future? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's likely they have already laid out plans for upcoming patch, because any new tanker unit will be strong, especially 5 stars. So far, we have only gotten 2 limited units from this path, and I'm confident they could make your team untouchable or at the very least unkillable. Take Fusion, for example. She was an incredibly overpowered unit at the time. Her matrix can split and absorb up to 65% of the damage taken by her allies, redirecting it to herself. Not only that, but while her matrix is active, she also grants a 12% crit rate bonus, which significantly helps your DPS. That is actually quite broken, right? What makes her especially viable as a tank in the game is her ability to grant immunity to crowd control. So not only can she help keep the team alive until the end of the match, but she also offers more comfortable gameplay experience for some players. However, her current performance has slightly declined due to a few weaknesses, like high enemy speed and frequent AoE attacks. If exposed to this kind of attacks repeatedly, even Fusion's tanky HP can drop quickly. Additionally, her crowd control immunity only applies once and must be reset with her skill, which can be frustrating if the enemy continuously applies CC. Despite these downsides, Fusion remains one of the most overpowered tank units, although the value she provides is not as high compared to the other limited sustain, Aventurine. Aventurine is an incredibly comfortable sustain unit to use. He provides a shield with solid scaling, and what makes him so practical and handy is that one teammate immediately receives a shield upon entering the battle. Players don't need to use his skill repeatedly to refresh the shield's duration, because after the team and he himself take a few hits, he will launch a follow-up attack that hits a random enemy and refreshes the team's shield. This makes him a very XP positive unit. Additionally, Aventurine brings more value to the team beyond just keeping them alive, including crowd control resistance and contributing damage. Yes, Aventurine grants a 50% effect resistance to allies protected by his shield. He also converts a portion of his defense stat into crit rate, making his follow-up attacks quite significant in terms of damage contribution to the team. He currently seems quite overpowered, and if Hoyo were to release another preservation unit soon, I think they would need to be at least as strong as Aventurine, if only by a small margin. However, this could create some issues and potentially disrupt the game's balance a bit. Why? Why is it risky for the preservation path to become very powerful with an expanded character roster? The answer is abundance. They feel like they need to make abundance stronger or perhaps more dominant in terms of its character roster. Have you ever heard the saying, prevention is better than cure? That may explain why preservation may always remain the best sustain in Star Rail. It provides comfort and makes your team almost untouchable. But if that happens, wouldn't it make the game a bit monotonous and less thrilling? Because you will always feel safe. Imagine if they release 1 or 2 new preservation characters and make them very powerful. Abundance units would likely lose appeal, and many players might be reluctant to pull for healers in this game. This could potentially lead to a decrease in banner revenue for various abundance characters in the future, making them less relevant. And from a developer's point of view, this would be disadvantageous, right? Unlike DPS, we only have 2 kinds of sustain. Meanwhile, DPS can come from a wide range of paths such as Distraction, Hunt, Erudition, and even Nihility. Making one DPS path superior to the other is not as harmful because each type of DPS can be used in different endgame content. For example, Distraction and Hunt units are mostly suited for MOC, and Erudition for pure fiction. But competition between sustain paths is much stronger since you need them for all types of endgame content. So if Hoyo releases a few limited preservation units with performance level close to or even equal to Aventurine's, it's almost certain that not many players will want to use Abundance, unless those units provide other significant utilities besides just keeping their team alive. Alright, so we have discussed how upcoming 5-star preservation units could easily overshadow the role of Abundance. But that's only if they release a 5-star. And what about a 4-star? On the other hand, some new 4-star preservation units might perform just okay, unless they create a character with quality on par with a 5-star. That's what we call a 5-star disguised as a 4-star. An example would be Gallagher from the Abundance path. But what we really need right now is variety. We know that one reason they may not be releasing a new 5-star limited unit is that they don't want to make it too strong. But could they at least release a 4-star character? They don't have to make units that are extremely tanky or overpowered. The key is that these units could offer other important utilities. There are several examples they could use to make 4-star preservation units more appealing, even if the durability they provide to the team is not as strong as Fusion or Aventurine's. First, they could release a 4-star that grants the whole team a shield after a dot from the enemy is triggered. This way, dot teams, which can often be overlooked and less relevant now, can also feel the benefits. Alternatively, they could create a sustain unit that focused on damage, like a unit that can absorb the remaining shields of teammates and then unleash them to deal nuke damage that is guaranteed to be a critical hit. Or they could develop a sustain unit that focus on summon mechanics. There are so many possibilities they could explore to provide players with alternatives besides Fuxun and Aventurine. What do you think? What kind of kit that could Hoyo create for some upcoming preservation characters? Please leave your comments below. So those are the possible reasons why preservation is a path that is not forgotten, but rather suffers from a lack of representation in terms of its members and variations. Once again, this is just my personal opinion, so feel free to disagree with this video and instead, share your thoughts in the comment sections about the inadequate representation of preservation. If you enjoyed this video, please support the creators by hitting the like and subscribe button. Turn on notifications as well so you won't miss any new videos from me. Thanks for your time and I will see you in the next video.